And then to start off with, we'll start with Chris. If you can give a little bit of background on your coaching background, and then we'll have Callie do the same.
Awesome. Thanks, John. And thank you for having me on. So my name is Chris Rich. I'm the head coach at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. Been here for just about a year, just over a year. Prior to that, I was at Duke University as an assistant coach there for 4 years. And then prior to that, UNC Chapel Hill for right around 3. So I've been in the state for a while. See a lot of familiar names on here and know a lot of the clubs in the state, obviously. So happy to be on the call.
Thanks, Chris. Callie?
Thanks, John. Callie Morrill. I'm currently at Lees-McRae College, which is a Division II school in Banner Elk, North Carolina, up in the mountains. If we get to play this year, this will be my 14th season coaching collegiately. I started at Lenoir-Rhyne University in Hickory, North Carolina. So I've worked for 3 Division II private institutions during the last 14 years. So Lees-McRae College, Lenoir-Rhyne in North Carolina, and then most recently, before I took the job in August, at Lynn University in Boca Raton, Florida. So happy to be back. This is actually my second stint at Lees-McRae College. I previously held the same head coaching position at Lees-McRae in 2010 and 2011. So just moved the family back up here at the start of the 2019 season. So happy to be here with you guys.
Yeah, thanks. And on behalf of North Carolina Youth Soccer and all the coaches on the call, we appreciate you taking some time today to chat with us. So as we start this, and we've got a wide variety of coaches, some with a lot of experience, maybe some with less experience. Chris, can you start off with just sharing a little bit of the differences between Division I soccer and Division II soccer? I know you've had a background as a player in Division II.
Yeah, there's not a lot of difference. Everybody looks at Division I as end-all, be-all, but I played at Division II and I coached Division II. That's how I started my career. There are many good programs in Division II, just like there are many good programs in Division I, and there are bad programs in Division I, just like there are bad programs in Division II. So that's the way I look at it anytime you ask me about the level of play. The biggest difference is resources. Division I, from my experiences, will have more resources from a just equipment standpoint, travel standpoint, coaching salaries, that kind of stuff through my experience. And that's not all across the board, because I know some Division II programs are a little bit different as well. So the biggest thing is the resources. There's a slight difference in scholarship allocation between Division I and Division II, whereas Division III, obviously, there's no athletic scholarships. And then, obviously, there's, in my experience, in Division II, there was a better balance maybe between academics and athletics, where in Division I, at least in my contract, there's a little bit more priority into winning and losing. But my mentality never shifted, whether I was a Division II coach or Division I coach. So I see them very alike through my experiences.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Callie, anything from your experiences, having been in Division II for several years, and then certainly you have peers in Division I and Division III, differences or similarities between the 3 divisions?
Yeah, I'd say maybe hours committed. So hour requirements that each program, Division I to Division II to Division III, that the coaches are allowed to have required as physical, countable athletic related activity for the kids. So Division I probably has a little bit more than Division II, and then Division II and Division I have more than Division III. So for instance, in the off season of Division III, they're very minimal in how mandatory team trainings and things of that sort in the spring season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point. The commitment level in the fall may be similar in a lot of the divisions, but then the commitment level and the experiences that a student athlete has in the spring may differ a little bit. So Callie, as players start thinking about the recruiting process and some of the key things they should do in their freshman, their sophomore year, and then their junior and senior year, what are some of the input that you would provide club coaches of how to advise their players in that process, the things they should do in these different years of high school?
Absolutely. I'd say just even early on when they have a chance to visit, whether it's family vacation, encourage them early on to just jump on campuses even if they don't meet with a coach, just to get a feel for location-wise of certain schools, what it's like driving through campus, because kids are funny, and we all know it. We do it the same as adults. We just, sometimes it's our gut feeling. As soon as we jump on, approach a situation, we know if we like it or not. So same with the kids a little bit. Just encourage them to venture through campuses, be seen, be adamant. If they don't get their top pick straight away, not to be discouraged. I noticed that on the girls' side, if they feel rejected a little bit, they tend to kind of throw their hands up in the air and not go after choice 2, 3, and 4. So just kind of encourage them that way.
Yeah, Chris, as you think about the players starting the recruiting process, when do you see players starting to reach out to you? When do you personally think they should start reaching out to you in those different years of high school? And how does that communication evolve through those years?
Yeah, the timeline of recruiting, first off, is the first day that we can have any kind of communication with prospective student athletes is June 15th of as they finish their sophomore year prior to starting their junior year. Now, with that said, the timeline for women's soccer in Division I and men's soccer is completely different. Our timeline, or at least my timeline, I would say as a freshman in high school and club in that stage, I wouldn't be focused on recruiting at all. I would be focusing on their individual development. As they progress their sophomore year, I think that's when you should take notice to your next step in the college process a little bit more. Kind of what Callie just said, start exploring geographically, levels, conferences, what kind of school academically, what kind of school athletically, what's the coach like. Start doing some research on your end. And then at that point, maybe halfway through the sophomore year, maybe you're attending camps, maybe you're reaching out to the coaches, putting your name on their radar. And then as you start transitioning into your junior year, that's when I really start taking it seriously. Here at UNCG, I'll identify players as a sophomore and then watch how they progress. And then into their junior year, hopefully start making close to making decisions on if that player is a right fit for us for all aspects. So that's kind of the timeline we work off of. And then junior year, at some point during that timeline, or whether first semester or second semester of their junior year, start making a decision.
Yeah. So on that note, as DOCs and club coaches start thinking about assisting their players in beginning the recruiting process, and you talked about that process maybe starts freshman and sophomore year, and then really gets heavier as they get in the junior and senior year of the contacts. As they're starting that process in the sophomore year, what would be the advice you would give club coaches on how to help their players first start that process?
Is that for me?
Yeah, Chris, if you'll start out, then Kai can add in.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is education. So education on how recruiting works and video. So you see it's getting better and better in the club world that whether it's coaches or the club itself are filming games. And I'm sure we'll go into that later on, but video is becoming a massive need for all of us as club coaches. A highlight video is nice, but I want to see full 90-minute games. So I think providing that resource to your players, being able to film the game so they have access to their video, or they can take that video and then create their own highlight videos based on that. And then 2, just education. Having them informed on how the recruiting process works, whether it's through college seminars or Q&As and budding college coaches there. I think that's important because so many youth players come in with either they don't know how to properly write an email, they don't put the right stuff in the email, they don't know when they should communicate, they don't understand that we can't communicate back until a certain point. So I think education and video are the 2 most important things.
Yeah, Kelly, anything that you would add based on your experience on the female side as far as advice for club coaches as they're helping players start that process, maybe their freshman or sophomore year?
I think Chris was kind of spot on with that, but the film part has, even now in COVID, has become even that much more relevant, So I think definitely that they can even watch themselves. I think that's a big thing, the perk of having the film, so they can kind of see themselves as they kind of develop in this recruiting process for themselves.
Yeah, so I know there's been some changes, particularly I think on the female side, but maybe on the male side as well. So what rules, whether it's an NCAA rule, should club coaches be aware of in regards to their contact with college coaches, or if it's not an NCAA rule, what's maybe some best practices they should be aware of in regards to their communication with college coaches? Callie, can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd encourage the player to really establish contact. So let's say they're a freshman or a sophomore, right? And we're outside where we can call it that contact period where we can legally contact them. I'd encourage, they can call us anytime, right?
Mhm.
So they can email us anytime. So really they kind of have to be proactive. If they want to start that recruiting process as early as like freshman and sophomore year, they really have to kind of be in charge of it, because there's a limit to the amount that we can do preceding their junior year, and going into that. So I would say freshman, sophomore, if they really want to jump on board, they've got to be persistent on their end.
Now, in regards to specific communication from the club coaches that you receive, is there anything that club coaches should be aware of, whether it's an NCAA rule or maybe a best practice on how the club coach should best communicate with college coaches? Chris, you want to take that?
Yeah. For me, the relationships with the clubs and the coaches is everything. And for me and my success, or my process in recruiting, it starts there. You guys see your players more often. You guys have a better feel for their positive qualities, their negative qualities, things they need to work on. So for me, it's establishing communication with the college coach. I would like to think I have many good contacts in this state, and some of you guys are on the call. So reach out to us anytime. I mean, for me, I want that rapport. I want that relationship. I want texts. I want emails. I want calls. So for me, it's open lines of communication, and I'll have that same. I'll be, whether it's myself or my assistant coaches, we'll be attending training sessions, attending games, reaching out to you, getting a cup of coffee. To me, in terms of proper etiquette, man, it's look to establish relationships. And because I know as a college coach, I love that. I enjoy that. And I highly trust a club coach's opinion, because you'll see them and you'll interact with them more than not. You'll know what the parents are like. You'll know what they are academically to an extent. So for me, it's create those open lines of communication at any time.
Yeah. So as a club coach looks to do that with you, let's say it's a coach you don't have a previous relationship with. How would you recommend them do that? Would it be sending you an email? What information should be in that email? Would it be a call straight to you? Would it be a text? Yes, all of them are probably acceptable ways of communication, but what's most helpful for them to facilitate that initially?
I'm pretty easygoing, so cold call me anytime.
Yeah.
So they can cold call me, text, email. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not answering it with a specific answer, but I'm super easy in that regard. I'm okay with cold calls. I answer the phone, I respond, call back. So I have zero issues. I would say most college coaches are like that. Of course, just like anything else, you have some that are super particular about something, but I would encourage a cold call or an email or a text without a problem.
Yeah, no, and I think that's important feedback, because there may be club coaches that are apprehensive about just straight up calling the college coach. And it's important for them to understand that's okay. And that a lot of college coaches are looking for that contact. Callie, when you receive communication from players, including them sending you a player profile, what are you looking for? What should club coaches advise their players to put in that email communication and in their player profiles to best assist those players in providing you the information you need?
You obviously have player profiles, then you have email templates. So I think obviously the cleaner looking, the better. So going to email templates really quick. I think it's a great idea for a club to have a standard email template where you can disperse amongst your club. So the kids just fill in, the important things: grad year, club they play for, position, contact information, okay? So cell phone, same thing. Like, email is great, but we know the kids, if we can text them straight away, it's much more convenient, and it's more productive. They respond quicker. So I get a lot of emails without phone numbers, and we end up playing email tag forever, till we can get in contact. So I think same thing, subject line, if you can give them specifics that they just have to go in there and type in, and they have a template they can follow, the better, right? Same thing for player profile. We don't need much, I don't think. But if player profiles at a tournament can fit on one sheet, that's great, so we don't have to funnel through 3 pages. The simpler, the better in my eyes.
Yeah, Chris, anything specifically you're looking for on the player profile, or that oftentimes you see missing from it, or missing in the communication you receive from players?
Yeah, I mean, Callie kind of said it. I think you got to dumb it down, just like she said. You got to make it simple. So you got to treat it like make it as easy as possible for certain coaches. I would say video is essential for me. A highlight video is, if I get a random email with no information or no highlight video, I mean, it's not going to be much for me. Yeah, the grad year is the most important, because I need that to know if I can respond. That's super important. The club they're at, and maybe their schedule. Of course, academics are important for me. I will always look at the video first, see if he's a player that's a good fit, then start digging into the academics. That's the process I go into, but I know a lot of coaches like the transcript attached, or at least GPA as well. But for me, it's highlight video, grad year, who they are, what club, boom. Those are the essentials, and I'll look into that player right away.
Yeah, so I think some really good feedback. Sometimes those player profiles can be too detailed, and that's okay. It's always good to provide a lot of information, but college coaches need the nuts and bolts, and there's certain things like grad year, club coach, club schedule, cell phone. Those are some of the really important things to make sure that club coaches are advising the players to have on those profiles. So when you're looking at players on the field, whether you're evaluating them in person, or you're evaluating them through a highlight video, or you're evaluating them in a full 90-minute video, Callie, what are some of the on-field qualities you're looking for? And then what are some of the additional, holistic, the person qualities that you're looking for in the players?
Right. When we first glance, at least on the women's side of the game, we're looking, I look for people that are aggressive. Now that may not just be, hitting a tackle whenever they can. It's just first the ball mentality. So aggressive in nature, fitness level we're looking at, especially the closer they are to getting ready to come into the college game. So that tells us kind of how serious they take training and their side of the game. And just mentality. So how in tune are they with the game? And even the situation of the game. So if they're down a goal, are they kind of sprinting to grab a throw, and speed the game up if they're down a goal? That tells us kind of that they're in tune with the game, and their mentality for the game is very good. Personally, you look at how they interact with their teammates, obviously how they communicate, things of that sort.
Yeah. And Chris, you've talked a lot about the video component being really important these days. So when you receive a highlight video, let's say, or even a 90-minute match, what are some of the things you're hoping that video can show you about the player?
Yeah, this is always a funny question for me, because if you ask 100 college coaches, they'll give you 100 different answers.
Sure.
It's all relates back to your game model for me. So if I want to play a certain way, which is more of a positional play type style, I want to have the ball as much as possible. I want to be aggressive defensively. Okay, that's how UNCG wants to play. So I'll go out and evaluate players based on our game model. So in possession, technical ability and soccer IQ, the ability to make decisions at a quick rate, is boom, it's number one. If they can't do that, I cross them off the list. I look for, since we want to have the ball all the time, I want players that have a natural ability to want to win the ball back. So they are willing to counter press. It's instant. They're explosive enough or physical enough to counter press. We want a high press, so I'm looking for players that have the physical qualities to do so, that have the mentality to embrace it. So it all goes back to my game model and based on how we want to play. So it's very specific, based on the position, based on the profile, based on what line they're at, where we're at in the field. And I just go through those qualities as we go. In addition to that, I have certain criteria that we look for, whether it's, motivated students, competitive athletes. Those things are kind of harder to get a feel for through video. So those would take additional evaluations, but we first look at the game model and go from there.
Yeah. And so circling back around to the communication you have with club coaches, and you both talked about being open to coach calling you anytime and wanting to chat about a player. What should that coach be prepared to tell you about a player? What are the questions you're going to ask them? What is the information that you're going to want to be able to receive from them to make that communication most effective? Chris, you talked about being that open line. So how is that dialogue going to occur? What are you going to try to receive from that conversation?
Yeah. So hopefully, I'll be able to touch upon or at least evaluate those things I just mentioned through my own eyes, right? Obviously, I'll probably reiterate some of those questions just to get a better feel for it. But what the coach can bring me is how do they train? What's the mentality in training? Are they a leader or are they more of a follower? High character, low character. What's their relationship with their parents? Are they more independent or dependent? What are their academics like? Do they seem motivated by being a student? So I look for those things. What are they looking for in the college process? I can find out in one conversation with the college coach. If they're looking for an Ivy League education, most coaches will know that, then I'm not going to even bother recruiting that player. So I'll try to learn in this 1, 2, 3 minute, 5 minute conversation right off the bat what that specific student athlete is looking for. And then I can see if it's worth our time even extending that conversation or moving forward with that player.
Yeah. Callie, do you have a go-to question, a really important question that you always ask club coaches in that interaction to get the most out of that?
I mean, Chris kind of hit all the hot topics that we touch on with club coaches. So
yeah, I think
not a specific.
Yeah, one of the things I'm hearing too is that the club coaches need to be ready with specific information, not necessarily just general statements of they work really hard or these pieces, that you're really going to dive into the specifics of getting to know the background of that player in a lot of different ways.
I think, John, it helps when the club coaches are familiar with the level and understand when they call UNCG, they know where we're at, right? Versus if they call Chapel Hill or they call whoever, Charlotte, Wilmington, they have a good feel for what our standard is, what kind of football we try to play. So if the club coach does the research as well, that can make things so much easier.
Yeah, and we touched on that there's talented Division I programs. There are Division I programs that maybe aren't as talented. Same thing in Division II, same thing in Division III. So understanding the history of that program, the level of that program currently can help that club coach best position their player. So that's great feedback. College ID camps. That's always a big topic that I know that parents ask a lot about and likely ask their club coaches. Callie, how do you use college ID camps, either the ones you host at Lees-McRae, or do you go out to other camps? And this may differ greatly from Division I to Division II or Division III. So how do you look at the college ID camps, and what should coaches advise their players in regards to attending those?
Absolutely. Personally, for at the Division II level, we love hosting ID camps. It gives us, and we keep ours small, 25 to 30 players really at the max. That way, if it gets too many and it's just our coaches only evaluating, right, the kids get lost. So if you have 100 kids, like we're not seeing, it's hard to get a feel for 100 kids in one day. So we keep them small, and I think it's great because a lot of these kids we've had relationships with, and it gives us a chance to manipulate their play and really put them into a situation that we want to see them and how they react. Other kids that attend, we haven't seen. So it gives us a chance to evaluate straight away. So personally, on an individual level, program-wise, we love hosting our own. And typically it's just our coaching staff. We don't invite any other institutions and programs. But we have gone to others where they host, 100 players, and there's a lot of coaches, and those work as well. I think those are great. So going back to how the kids decide, it's like, it's hard because I think the question is, a lot of people say, well, are they just trying to make money, or are they trying to really truly evaluate the players? And I would say the more in contact you are with college coaches, the more you'll kind of know what kind of camp it is you're going to. Is it to make money, or is it to be evaluated and potentially recruited in front of college coaches or a specific college? So the size of the camp, I think, matters, asking and kind of seeing how many players are coming. Then you can kind of get a feel for what situation they're about to encounter.
Yeah, Chris, in your experiences as a club coach previously, in addition to your college roles and then being at a couple different colleges, what is the advice you would give club coaches on how best to advise their kids in regards to going to ID camps and which ones to attend?
Yeah, it's always an ongoing question. The reality is camps are a necessity, and college programs will always run them, and players typically will need them for additional evaluations. When I was a club coach, the biggest thing that I would do is I'd figure out that camp made sense for that player. And how you do that is maybe reach out to the college coach. Are they looking for that grad year still? Are they done with that class? Are they looking for those positions? Get a feel for, and most, I'll shoot it straight. If I think a player shouldn't come to my camp, I'll tell the club coach or the player, no problem. If I don't think he's good enough, don't waste your time. Don't waste your money. At the end of the day, some kids have the resources. It's not a problem. They'll go to many camps. Some kids don't have the resources. So I think for those kids, you have to do a bit of research, figure out which camps make the most sense. I would always prefer going to specific school camps because that's a program in a school you want to attend versus going to these general camps that have like 20 schools. Because to me, personal opinion here, I think those camps are a waste of time. And I don't want to throw a blanket statement out there, but that's what I believe. I think you go to the camps, the programs you're actually interested in. But yeah, you got to do a little bit of research and figure out which ones are the right fit and whatnot.
Yeah, most importantly, it sounds like it's important that the player understands the reality of the camp they're going to and are realistic about what they're going to get out of it. Are they going to a camp that's small and because they're specifically like that school? Or if they're going to go to a bigger camp, they understand that it will be a bigger camp and that there's maybe cons to that situation as well. We've talked a little bit about camps, and obviously there's showcases. Callie, what are other ways that DOCs or club coaches can help showcase their kids? Is it going to individual, showcasing their individual games? Is it inviting college coaches to watch their team train? Is it, encouraging them to go to a high school camp? What are other ways that maybe club coaches can help showcase their players?
Possibly a club combine, where you can bring. I know a couple clubs in the state have already done that, and we found it to be pretty successful for us, and it's a great recruiting opportunity. Allows us to keep building those relationships with the coaches too when we get out to your facilities. Training, inviting coaches out to training where they can see maybe not just one team train, but they can see, the sophomores, juniors, seniors train in some sort of environment. And what I love about, you can't do it at the Division I level, and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but you could have your club team play a division in the springtime, play a Division II, III, or NAIA team in the off season. So I think that would be a great way to showcase. I believe Division I, you cannot play club teams. But in the Division II, I know for sure we're allowed to have off season games with club teams. That's a great way for us because now we can see high school age kids and how they fare against kids in the college game already and what their potential could eventually be.
Yeah. All right, so now we'll start to talk a little bit about this upcoming fall and some things as it connects to COVID. As we close in on the last couple questions here, if you do have your own questions, again, there's a chat feature. Please send a private message to me, John Trice, and then we'll look to try to field those at the end. Chris, can you share just a little bit about what your fall college season is looking like in the current day and a little bit of what the landscape across Division I is looking like in regards to the possibility of a fall season?
Yeah, in Division One on the men's side, we've had 7 conferences cancel or postpone to the spring. So as of right now, it looks like the NCAA is not making any general blanket decisions. It's kind of up to each division. So Division 1, 2, and 3. But even within the division, in Division 1, it's really up to the conferences because the conferences hold more leverage and more power than the actual division does. So seven conferences have canceled or postponed. The other 17 of us are planning at we're going as scheduled. All of us are delayed a little bit, just like most club environments are. Our players will check in on the 15th of August. They will get tested for COVID-19. The moment they are clear, we get to begin training. We're thinking that's going to take between 3 to 4 days. And then our first day of competition is not until mid-September because that got pushed back to give us more time to acclimate and transition back into the college environment. So, man, games are constantly being rescheduled and moved around, and conferences are figuring out, do they go conference only? Our conference has kind of been staying put and waiting for all the other dominoes to affect to fall out. That's kind of been their mentality. So it's changing daily. But right now we're a go, and we're just figuring out as we go. We're just trying to create the best safe return possible for our players. I think we are doing that. And then now we're starting to figure out what playing outside competition means. Is it safe to play this school because they're testing as well? Is it not safe? Those kind of details. It's a lot, but we're getting through it.
Yeah. Callie, where is Lees-McRae College right now? And then what have you kind of seen across the landscape in Division II?
Right, a little bit the same as Chris. So some conferences have postponed or canceled. Our conference is on a delayed start. So September 18th is the start to our officially where we can start playing games. We can start team training September 1st. So like we're on a bit of a progression. Actually, our kids move in this weekend, August 8th on Saturday and Sunday. And then it's a progression from voluntary training for the first, handful of days to an 8-hour segment a week, 8-hour requirement a week. And then it'll progress into our team training starting on September 1st. So we're on a bit of a progression from voluntary to limited hours to full team training.
Now, and either one of you can take this. Now, your schools, once they return, will it be straight into full contact training, or what is kind of the perspective at colleges right now?
I'll start. Every school is different. Every school has their own policies and standards. Sometimes it's across the conference. Here at UNC-G, we are allowed to train fully. The whole wearing masks in training or not has not been determined yet because we still have a couple weeks. They're working through those details. I know as a coach, I'll be coaching in a mask. I know that for sure. But in terms of the contact, no contact, as of right now, we are allowed to do that as of now, starting on whenever we get tested and we're all of our guys come back as negative, meaning we're in the clear. Now we're certainly encouraged to acclimate them from a periodization standpoint, for injury prevention standpoint. For COVID-19, we as of right now don't have additional restrictions, but of course that could change tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. So this summer has been unique in a lot of different ways due to COVID. What have been the NCAA restrictions in regards to recruiting for college coaches? What are they currently, and then do you envision that continuing? So, Chris, if you can start, and then Callie, maybe you can share if there's been any differences Division II, although I would think it's probably across the board.
Yeah, there are differences. Actually, every division has differences right now. It's crazy. Division I, it's a dead period. So it's been a dead period ever since this all started. So I don't know, going on 4 months now. And that means we cannot recruit off campus. We can't have any contact with prospective athletes, and they can't be on our campus and have contact with us. So we can continue to email, text, and call. So all that electronic communication continues, but we cannot have any off-campus contact or evaluation. So that's a dead period. That's until August 31st. Any day now, we're expecting that to be extended. And I'm guessing it'll be extended a month, and then they'll do it case by case. but we don't know that information. So right now it's to the 31st. I believe Division II, Callie will bring, I think they're on a quiet period. In Division III and the JUCO and NAIA can recruit actually, full on right now. But I think Callie has details on Division II.
Yeah, so we're in a quiet period. So we obviously we still can't go off campus to recruit right now. Same up until August 31st, and the same as Chris said, we kind of do expect it to be extended, but that's to be determined. The prospective student athletes can come on campus and we can have interaction with them on campus. So as of June 1st, this summer, we started opening up tours and having recruits back on campus. You know, we were in our full mask garb going through buildings and protocol and things of that sort. But that was a bit of an advantage for us to at least have student athletes back, or prospective student athletes back on campus and visiting.
So knowing that you've been in a recruiting dead period and there's a chance it may continue, Chris, how have you changed your recruiting approach during COVID? What have you had to do? What have you maybe done differently because of it?
Yeah, great question. The biggest thing is be patient. I think it's a mistake for universities and for players or clubs to rush decisions during this time. I'm encouraging players to be patient. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I've learned that because my recruiting mentality is always be aggressive. Once I know a player, give an offer, you have a certain time to make a decision. That's my mentality. But during this time, I need to adapt. I need to be flexible. I need to be aware of the situation. So I think being patient. And then the next variable that I've been doing a lot of is watching 90-minute games. I've never made decisions based on videos. I always need to watch a player in person. But now I think we have to adapt a little bit. So unless this changes, we will be making decisions based on video. So maybe we'll watch more video now. So having access to that is huge. So that's kind of how we've addressed it. I know some coaches have continued to be aggressive, but I think the moral code in me thinks that we need to be patient and kind of get through this time, and so that everybody makes the right decision.
Yeah. Kelly, anything you've done differently because of the NCAA restrictions this summer?
Yeah, we've put a higher emphasis in video. I mean, that hasn't been a big priority of us in the past, just because we always wanted to get out on the field. And we mostly had domestic students, coming to Lees-McRae as well. So, but I'd say, ramping up on the video and spending a lot more of our time calling and establishing just deeper relationships with recruits and coaches, club coaches.
Yeah. Cal, we'll stay with you. What should players and club coaches consider you do differently? We talked earlier about kind of that timeline of the recruiting process, and Chris brought up a good point about, coaches need to be patient and players probably need to be patient. Anything that you would advise club coaches to do differently, or for them to advise their players to do differently as they look at the college search during COVID?
Just an idea that I've seen recently just through social media, through one of the North Carolina clubs actually. You see a lot of girls establishing social media accounts that help them get recruited. So they're uploading just highlights of them training and working out and things of that sort. I think that's a great way during the COVID time to just be seen by college coaches and putting yourself out there. So they're basically, Twitter accounts, and they upload, instead of just personal day-to-day things, they're uploading just soccer content pertaining to like recruiting process. I thought that was a really smart thing to do during COVID.
Yeah, Chris, anything that you would advise DOCs and club coaches to encourage their players to do in regards to maybe how they change their approach during COVID?
I think doing stuff like this is great. I've been on a few of these with a lot of clubs. I think that's huge, kind of on a virtual standpoint, getting your players in front of programs and getting programs in front of your players. I think that's massive. Callie mentioned video is massive. So having your girls and guys, they should have a highlight video by now if they don't already, but breaking that down, having that ready to go. But I think, just doing a lot of what we just said and being patient through that process. Hopefully this will clear. We'll get on the field. You guys will have players on the field soon if you don't already, I think. And we'll get through it. But I think just continue to keep open line of communication, doing stuff like this is great.
That's awesome. A couple questions have come in as we finish up. We've got some coaches on here that both coach club, but then also maybe coach at the high school level. Callie, how do you look at high school soccer in the recruiting process? What are positives that you might be able to see and watching a player in their high school environment, either live or film? What might be a challenge?
Absolutely. So I'd say maybe a pro of high school is it's something within a quick driving distance, within an hour to two. So if you need to get to see them, and maybe you've already seen them in a club environment, but you need to see them play a second or a third time, that could be a benefit to having the high school game at our will. So the downside of it is we want to go see a high school game, maybe where you're playing a great opponent, right? Not something where they're just going to run over like the weaker of the team that you're playing. So I think maybe if you are asking a coach to come see a high school game, find a good game that you think could challenge your player and allow that college coach to see what they can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris, another question that came in regards to the player profile and what a player might provide you or a coach needs to be aware of in regards to their player when they speak to you. What are the most important things from an academic standpoint that you need to know about the player?
GPA is most important. GPA, and then if they have a test, if they have an SAT or ACT, that's most important. Obviously, the school they go to. Some schools' class rank is very important. But again, for me, I'll get into that more in detail through the recruiting process. But a GPA is probably the first massive step, because a lot of schools will have academic aid. UNCG is not one of them. But a lot of schools will have academic aid based on a certain GPA. So a lot of schools will recruit with that, and then will recruit certain players when they know that information.
Yeah. Callie, another question that came in regards to, I guess, third-party recruiting services. So the hope is that, a club coach and the player themselves can really help in that process. But what are the feelings you have or the experiences you've had with third-party recruiting services? Have you found that they've been valuable for players? What have been, again, challenges that you've seen with those third-party services?
Yeah, well, it's funny because, if you were to ask me before COVID, I would never spend really much any of my time on the third-party recruiting services. And now, I've been dabbling into it a lot more, right? Just whether it's I have time available to kind of cruise through some of those videos and so forth. But really, to me, it's even establishing a connection. If you know the third-party person who's kind of doing these evals and calling you, then that's so much better than if I don't know the person at the third party, company. So I'm kind of fortunate. I'm in a situation right now where I do know somebody working for a third party. So it's a little bit more helpful. Plus they know the level where we are and what kind of players we're looking for. So I found it to be beneficial now, especially during COVID.
Sure. And I think with any of those third party services, it's a matter of making sure it's clear what they're doing for you and understanding that maybe some of that stuff you can do yourself. The benefit is that you've got somebody else working on your behalf. So be careful on those pieces. So as we finish up, Chris, what would be the main advice you would give club coaches as they try to assist their players through the recruiting process? If you could kind of sum up some key points to advise them, what would you tell them?
I think the most important with everything is relationships. And it goes both ways, having relationships and creating relationships with college programs, maybe college programs in your local area or the state or the region that would recruit your players. And then relationships with your player, being honest with them, giving them specific, honest feedback with the level you think that player should be at. I mean, when I was a club coach, when I was at Duke, I would ask them to give me a list of schools they were interested in, and I would say, listen, you can't play at Duke or you can't play at NC State. You just can't do it. You gotta, let's look at this level. And obviously I wouldn't say that harshly, but I think those conversations are important. And I think so figuring out the level, because everybody has a fit, everybody has a home. So I think it's super important that we're honest with each other, So I think creating those relationships with both sides, the coaches and the players, so everybody finds the right fit.
Yeah, absolutely. And Callie, as you think about the players specifically, what would be a key component of advice you would have for players about the recruiting process that the coaches on this call can share with them?
Yeah, I think it goes back to earlier, staying committed to the process and encouraging them that their journey is their own. So it's hard because I know guys and girls, they see a friend commit and they think that's the same path and timeline that they should be on. So everyone's journey happens at a different time. So just allowing and encouraging them to stay committed and just giving them a chance to play, on the collegiate level.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on behalf of all the coaches that are on the call, Chris, Callie, thank you for taking some time today. Again, we will put the recording of this up on our NCYSA website. And for all the coaches on the call, as a reminder, we are doing these calls every 2 weeks on different topics. So we hope you'll join us again for the NCYSA webinars. Hope everybody has a wonderful day and continue to stay safe out there. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, John.
Thanks, guys.